Erev Tov, this week we are studying PARSHAS SETZE, and we want to discuss all these PARSHAS that are in the month of Elul. Has to have some connection to teach us something about the month of Elul. So we're going to look and find what the connection is over here. And this PARSHA with lots of myths. So let's look at one of them that may very well not be applying to many of us, but as we know, we have to apply all these mitzvahs in our lives. Oh, man, whoa, see, it jumps right away. Just like that, it just jumped on me. I already have a mix. Whoa, Sachrish. Oh, this whole thing is backwards. Okay, when I copied it, pasted it, it came out backwards. Okay, we'll read this line backwards. Las lo sachrosh b'shor ubechamor yachtov. You shall not plow with an ox and a donkey together. So the question is, why? What's wrong with using two separate donkeys to plow with them?
Two separate donkeys?
No. And an ox and a donkey. Two separate animals. An ox and a donkey teamed together to plow. What could be wrong with it? So the Ibn Ezra says, Hashem chomal al kol ma'asav. Hashem has mercy on all his creatures. Ki ein koach achamor kekoach ashur. Because the donkey is not as strong as the ox. And he won't be able to keep up with the pace of the ox. Okay. The Chizkuni gives a number of explanations. And look what he says. Shahashor malagera tamid. He says an ox is an animal that chews his cud. So he's constantly eating. Va'ochel. What he regurgitates the food, eats it again, regurgitates it, eats it again. He's on all the time. V'chamor eina malagera. But a donkey does not regurgitated food. So what's going to come out? That the donkey saying, hey, this ox keeps eating the whole day and I'm suffering. That would be giving the animals pain. Okay. And that's the idea. Okay. So there's and that's the basic.
Animal pain, like it will be both the animals' pain, because the donkey is feeling that he's not eating, and the ox is feeling that he's doing Lashon Hara.
Lashon Hara.
Yeah, because he's saying that why is he talking about me?
Well, I don't know about that. Okay. And also, he says the reason, is king of the domesticated animals. Okay. And the donkey is more of a denigrated animal. So that's not a good shidduch. And the same thing that Hashem has mercy on. Okay, so it's a very pragmatic mitzvah regarding the animals. We have to worry about the sensitivities of the animals. There are those who extrapolate a concept that if you're going to assign two people to do a job, make sure they're compatible with each other.
That's the main issue.
You know? And I don't mean just psychologically, emotionally, but like some people are more skilled than others. Someone can do something fast and the other person does something slow. So you can't put them together. It's not going to work. Just try to match the two workers that they're able to complement each other. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is based on a Gemara in Avodah Zarah. Gemara Avodah Zarah, Rabbi Yochanan says the name of Rav Bana. What does the pasuk mean when it says Ashreichem Zorei al Kol Mayim Mishalche Regel Hashor V'Chamor? Happy are you that sow, you plant, besides all waters, that send forth freely the feet of the ox and the donkey. What does that mean? So it means, happy are you, Israel, when they, the Jewish people, engage in Torah study and in acts of kindness. Why? Because their evil inclination is given over to them and they're not given over to their evil inclination. How do we know this? Because it says, happy are you that sow besides it waters, and sowing is referring nothing to other than charitable deeds. It says, sow to yourselves according to your charitableness, reap according to mercy. So it's a symbolism. Sowing is charity. And water refers to Torah, whoever's thirsty comes to Torah. So charitable deeds and Torah is very fortunate, and it will send forth freely the feet of the ox and the donkey. What does that mean? A person should always make himself subjugated to matters of Torah, like an ox to the yoke and like a donkey to a burden. What do we see from this Gemara? That the rabbis are symbolizing the Yetzer Hara with the regel hashor v'hachamor, the feet of the ox and the donkey. And someone who engages in Torah and acts of kindness, it's like sending them away. So the question is, what is the Yetzer Hara symbolized in the ox and the donkey? So the Ben Yoyada gives one explanation, that he's calling the Yetzer Hara to be shogeg and mazid, unintentional and intentional. And he figures out a whole explanation. But the Shvilei Pinchas gives a beautiful answer based on what we learned in the first shot. It just builds off of the first shot. Because there's a Yetzer Hara that tells us, I don't have to do kindness with other people's. And that is the same kind of person who puts the ox and the donkey together. And just like we don't let the ox and the donkey plow together, so the donkey won't be in pain when he's hearing the ox is chewing the food, doesn't have what to chew. Similar, the poor person doesn't have what to eat, and he's going to be in great pain when he sees another person is able to have all the delicacies of life. And that's what the Gemara says, someone who's learning in Torah and they're involved in acts of kindness. That's what it means that you're pushing off the feet of the shore and the chamor. Because the shore and the chamor being together means, what are you worried if you make yourself friend trouble? So we say, no, just like you shouldn't plow with the ox and the donkey together because one looks like he's eating, the other one not. So therefore, you're studying Torah. That's wonderful. But to be oblivious to a fellow Jew who's hungry, so it's like you're living your life without worry, and you're eating, and the other guy's not eating.
So that means if you're learning
Torah is not enough.
Yeah,
but acts of kindness
should be together.
Right.
Okay.
And with the acts of kindness, you're not enjoying your life while the other guy's not.
Right.
So that's the idea of, if we for the same reason we don't put the ox and the donkey together, a person should not avoid giving tzedakah. That's the second shot. But now we're going to go to the deeper shot. And that's wonderful, but it really doesn't have much to do with Elul. So the next shot, we hope, will give us a great deal to do with Elul. And we have to look at what the symbolisms of ox and donkey really are. What are the deepest symbolisms of the ox and the donkey? And to that, we go to a Zohar that says the following. Vayavo Amalek vayilachem im Yisrael b'Refidim. He talks about when Amalek fought the Jews in Refidim. And he brings the same pasuk that the Gemara brought before. Ashreichem zore al kol mayim mishalche regel ashor v'chamor. Fortunate are those who sow upon the waters, who send away the feet of the ox and the donkey. Okay. Now, he doesn't exactly He says, Mishach Haim Shenichtere Hasmol. Those are the ones that have been crowned by the left side. And they grab onto them, and they are called Shor and Chamor. He's not being explicit yet. In a minute, we'll get to it. As Yaakov says when he returns to Esau, he says, "Vayhili Shor v'Chamor." When I have an ox, I have ox and donkeys. Now, Yisrael tzadikim haim, when the Jews are righteous, they send them away. They cannot have any control over them. That's what it means. He sends away the feet of the ox and the donkey. They don't rule over it. We still don't know who this ox and donkey clearly is yet. We will. Rabbi says like this: if the ox and the donkey get together, people in the world can't stand up against them. And that's what it means, the mystical meaning. Don't let the ox and the donkey plow together. Yachtov deka, specifically those two together. If they work together from their sides, or if they would be together intimately, this all allegorically, what happens? Then comes out a dog from them. I don't know if it's a scientific fact if you crossbreed an ox with a donkey, but mystically. Which is the most chutzpahdik of all the animals. Okay, and that's what it said when the Jews left Egypt, the dogs did not bark. Okay, and then when the Jews were complaining about the water, and we said, we don't know if Hashem's in our midst or not, Hashem said, we're going to send you the dog. And right away comes Amalek. All right.
So I don't understand.
I know you don't understand yet. We haven't explained enough.
No, my question is here, okay, if an ox and donkey together are talking, I'm saying that is a dog is a chutzpah.
Yeah.
But the dog didn't bark when they left.
When they left Egypt, but when they said, but in the desert, when we said, is God in our midst or not? Oh, that's when the dogs got sent. And who's the dog? Amalek. So we can control the dog and not control the dog. And the Zohar isn't telling us exactly how and what. He's leaving out a lot of details, which we're going to have to fill in. Okay, I'm not expecting you to understand this Zohar yet. There's too much information not being supplied. So to understand this a little bit better, the Megala Amukos, a great Rav from Krakow in the 1600s, he gives a little explanation. And we start with the covenant between them that we're all familiar with, where Hashem tells them, take all these animals. And it says, Vayikach lo es kol ele. And he takes all of these. Vayivasar sam batavach. And he cut them in two. Vayiten ish bisol, because he puts one half of the animal on one side, one half the other side. And then what happens? And Avram has to walk in between those two. So what is that? What's going on over there? So the Megala Mukas explains, I couldn't find the exact, I saw people quote him. So what's Vayikach lo kol ele? What's all these? So Megala Mukas says, there we know mystically, there are Lamed Hey Sarim B'Yamin. There are 35 officers or kingdoms to the right. Ubaroshem Yishmael, and Yishmael is at the head of them. He's the one in charge of 35 of the nations of the world. Yishmael. V'lamed Mismael, and 35 from the left. Hakidosha, Mismael Hakidosha, Ubaroshem, and the top is Edom. That's Esau. And these are opposite these. In other words, if you look carefully, the word Ele has the letters Lamed Hey. What's the gematria of Lamed Hey? Lamed is 30, Hey is 5. Aleph is the one, and there's the one in charge. So it's if he's saying, we're going to split these animals, and we're going to put one side is going to be Yishmael, and the 35 kingdoms he represents. And the other side is Esau and the 35 kingdoms that he represents. And the critical point is, and the Jews are in the middle. Avram walks in the middle, which means the two of them should not get back together. That's critical. And that's part of the covenant between the parts. If you want the world to stay the way it should be, Avram, you got to just walk in the middle. You got to separate Yishmael and the power he has over 35 nations, and Esav and the power he has over 35 nations. As we say in the davening every day in Tehillim, Eile Borechev. Can you say the rest of it? Ve'ele Basusim. These come with chariots and these come with horses. Elis, the 35 and the 35. V'anachnu, the pasuk goes in and says, V'shem Hashem Elokeinu naskir, we will mention Hashem's name. So, and now we can understand the deeper shot of the Zohar. It means lo sachrosh b'shor ubechamor yachtov. What does that mean? You don't want the ox and the donkey together. Because remember, Yishmael and Esav, they represent the failed midos of their parents. Avram is the pillar of kindness, and Yishmael is the impurity of kindness. And that's kindness with the klipa. And that's like the chamor. The chamor is a very coarse, base animal. It wants its pleasures. So Yishmael is the code word for the chamor, because he has the kindness of Avram, but it's self-centered kindness. It's taiva. Kindness in the wrong direction is kindness for yourself. That's taiva. Okay, and Esav, he is the imperfection of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is gvura, control. But Esav is control in the wrong way, and that's like the ox, who's very powerful, who is over the other 35 nations. And therefore, the Zohar is saying, the Torah says we have to be careful. Lo sachrosh b'shor ubechamor yachtov. You cannot let the ox and the donkey, with both of their powers, get together, because that will bring a great calamity to the world. And this is something we have found throughout in history. Most recently, well, not most recently, but fairly recently, was before the Holocaust. Hitler, before he could make his final decisions of what to do to the Jewish people, what did he do? He went to the Mufti of Jerusalem from Yishmael, and he had a meeting with him, and they made a pact together. And that was the lethal merger of Esav, which was Hitler, and Yishmael, which was the Grand Mufti. And the Grand Mufti said, you got to kill all these Jews. We don't want any more of them coming to Israel. We got too many coming to Israel already. And therefore, that was this pact. So you have to be very, when the two of them are together, it's a terrible, and this is the deepest insight into what it means. You should never let the ox and the donkey plow together. Cannot allow those forces to be together. As the Mishnah in Sanhedrin says, when the Rishonim are separated from each other, it's good for them and it's good for the world. Good for them, they don't sin. Good for the world, we don't suffer from them. Tzaddikim, if they're separated, it's bad for them and bad for the world. The wicked people get together, it's bad for them and it's bad for the world. And if tzaddikim get together, it's good for them and it's good for the world. Okay, with this we can now understand another pasuk. After Yitzchak sends Yaakov away to Lavan's house, it says, Vayelech Esav el Yishmael. Esav goes to Yishmael, and he takes Machlas, the daughter of Yishmael, for a wife. Why is he doing that? Well, we know that Yaakov, his midah is Tiferes, which is the blend of Chesed of Avram and the Gvura of Yitzchak. And when Esav saw that Yaakov was able to take away his brachas, So he figured the reason is because Yaakov has the blend of Chesed and Gvura, and was stronger than Esav, who only is the Gvura of the opposite. So it's like Yaakov had a double barrel against him. So what did he do? He wanted to connect with the Klip of Yishmael, which is the Klip of Chesed. So he goes and marries Yishmael's daughter. So he'll have both forces together to take on Yaakov. That's what he wanted to do. And therefore Yaakov runs away. And when Yaakov comes back, what does he tell his servants to send messengers? He says, tell Esav, Im Lavan Garti. I stayed with Lavan. And Rashi says the word Garti as the letters Taryag, 613 mitzvahs. And I was able to do the 613 mitzvahs. I didn't learn from Lavan. And I'm not afraid, even if you and Esav are together. He say, Vayehi li, and I have shor v'chamor. What does he mean? He has to tell me he has donkeys and oxen. He says, I got the power to overcome the two of you, which is a shor and a chamor. Because I have been loyal to what I had to do, and I've been able to fulfill the covenant of the parts. I can stand between the two of you. We have to understand how that happens, but that's what he's doing. And that's what the Zohar is saying. If the two of them get together, they're going to produce the dog. And if you like gematrias, very nice. Let's take a look at the word shor and the word chamor. You see it. Now, what's the middle letter of shor?
Oh.
Vav. What's the two middle letters of chamor? Mem vav. What's the gematria of vav? How much is vav?
7.
6.
6.
What's mem?
Mem is 40.
40 and another vav.
6.
And what's it all add up to? The middle letters? 52 is the gematria of Kelev, the dog. In other words, when the shor and chamor to get together and they share, whatever a man and a woman get, they share their inner power. So the shor and the chamor share their inner power. You get the Kelev, you get the dog. So far, as we start this journey of understanding, we've got simple interpretation. Don't have an ox and a donkey together because it's going to make the donkey feel bad, right? It's going to make him feel bad, or for many reasons. You shouldn't ignore other Jews, make them feel bad. And now the deeper shot. We cannot let Yishmael and Esav, those forces, get together in this world. Cannot allow it to happen. Because if they do, they're going to wreak havoc with the world. And how do we stop it? Somehow, Yaakov, by being in the middle, is able to stop it. And that's what we have to continue to understand what's going on over here and what this has to do with the Elul. So let's proceed. And let's talk about the golden calf. Although you think it has nothing to do with Elul, but has a lot to do with Elul. What does the golden calf have to do with Elul? Anybody have an idea? The golden calf and Elul. Any connection at all? Well, the golden calf happened when? On what date in Jewish history? 17th of Tammuz. 17th of Tammuz. Hashem wanted to destroy the Jewish people. So Moshe goes back up the mountain for 40 days to get forgiveness. But then he goes back to the mountain a third time. Started Rosh Chodesh El. And he comes down on Yom Kippur. 40 days later. And what does he come down with? The tablets. What happened with the golden calf? He broke the tablets. Aha, so that's the connection. On the 17th of Tammuz, the golden calf, Moshe broke the tablets. Yom Kippur, which was 40 days after the beginning of Elul, he comes back with the tablets. So there's some kind of connection here. But let's take a look at an incredible statement of the Ramami Pano great Kabbalists in the Sefer Servamonos, they say about the golden calf. What did it look like?
Sure.
That its upper half towards its head resembled an ox eating grass. Its lower half towards its tail resembled a donkey. Ho ho. These represent two elements of the klipa. And regarding that unholy union, they said, these are your God, O Israel. Now, this is all based on a Zohar. It says, when the Torah says the Erev, the entire people unburdened themselves of the golden rings and ran through the fire, an eagle emerged in the shape of an ox and a donkey. Okay, so what's going on over here? What's going on over here? So the Megala Mukos explains the same idea. What was going to happen when the person, why did the Jews want to receive the Torah inside? Well, for many good reasons. But the Gemara, I don't have the source here, the Jews accepted the Torah so the Malach HaMaves would have no more control over them. And he bases it on a pasuk in Tehillim. Okay. And there's all kinds of proofs to that. And it says that the etchings of the luchos were charus. Charus is etched. And the word charus is the same as cherus, which is freedom. The Jews received freedom from the angel of death. When we said Nas and Nishma, we came to the state of first man before the sin. And the angel of death was gone.
Like we couldn't die.
At that point, we would have lived forever. And how long did that last for? 40 days. As soon as Moshe comes down the mountain and the people now are worshiping the Egel Azov, which has the shape of what? The ox and the donkey. So the Satan was able to put those two characteristics of Esav and Yishmael together, and the angel of death came back, and all the exiles of the Jews amongst the 70 nations that are represented by Esav and Yishmael come back. Okay, so now we understand the deeper connection between the month of Elul and this negative commandment of don't plow with the ox and the donkey together. Because as a result of the sin of the golden calf, that where we had the combination of the ox and the donkey, which is Esav and Yishmael, Moshe broke the luchos. And in the month of Elul, Hashem listened to Moshe's prayers, and he gave Moshe a second set of tablets. So comes out the month of Elul is our obligation to repair that which was broken because of the golden calf, which was the merger of Shor and Chamor. Okay, but what we fail to know yet, and with some balance of this class is going to discuss, so what is our unique avoda that we have to do in the month of Elul to keep the ox and the donkey separated? In other words, this is the command. So we've got all the pieces of the puzzle. Now we just got to explain it. From the beginning of time, Esav and Yishmael want to work together because they represent the worst of the two most important midos. The worst of chesed going in the wrong direction, total self-centeredness, total taiva. And the other hand is the opposite of what real gvura is. It's mamish controlling others. And what does the two of them together give you? It gives you Amalek, which is the counter to Yaakov. Yaakov takes the best of chesed and the best of gvura and is able to synthesize it and give us something called tiferet, something that's beautiful, something that's rachamim, something that's compassion. And Amalek, which comes from the lethal merger of Esav and Yishmael, is the opposite of compassion, which is what? Cruelty. People who are so balei taiva for themselves, And a lot of people are Baltivus, but they don't have the power to act on it. Many of us are Baltivus. I'm a big Baltiva. Okay, I am. But you know what? I wouldn't go to people and start holding them up at gunpoint to get their money so I could have more time. I don't have that kind of gvura. I just don't have it. So I don't have that gvura to fulfill all my types. There's some people who are very strong, you don't have any types. But when you put the two together, that's the worst. That's when a person is mamish cruel. You want to have a good picture of what that looks like? You know what it is? You saw it yesterday and the day before on the news. You saw it in the airport in Afghanistan, Kabul. What did you see? You see a bunch of Arabs with resources that was left over from the West. Subsidized, who knows, by money from the West. They don't have any money. What they do, they took everything. The Americans fled, and now they got all these fancy military things. And now you got the crew, it's Orachaimah, what they're going to do to these Pakistani women. It's going to be barbaric. Why? Because they're Bali Tivas and they got the power of the guns. And this is what you see. This is what you see is happening. And it's being supported by the West. The West is not stopping them. They're saying, you know, Pakistan's a bunch of losers. We've been there for 20 years and they can't defend themselves. So Biden says, so too bad for them. Too bad for them. I never wanted to be in there. Okay, that's what happened. Now, you think it's going to end with that? You think it's going to end with that? Now you got the Taliban. Has a whole country to train everybody. You don't think it's going to come in the most horrific, or at least they're going to try the most horrific. Remember, when was the last time that they were able to take the Ishmael hatred with the power of the West? Was 9/11. You see what they could do when they're able to take the control of a plane? They can't do all that. They don't have the gvura, but they got the taiva. And what do? You just fund them. What do you call the Palestinians? Where do they get the money to do things? It comes from the West. Biden comes into office, he gives the Palestinians a big present. Here, Trump didn't give you money, I'll give you money. For what? For nothing. And all of a sudden, there's all kinds of agitations going on in Eretz Yisrael from the Palestinians. We got to be careful about this. So you're going to say, so what do we do to stop it? Maybe we got to vote out Biden. No, Biden is just a puppet in Hashem's hands. But we got to understand there's something deeper. This is all happening, Mamish. This is all happening just in the beginning of the month of Elul. It's not a coincidence. Oh, they were the foolish people in the State Department, security, whatever, all these losers who don't know anything about. Just about 3-4 days ago, oh no, Kabul is not in any danger at all of being captured. That's what they said. It would take months and months, maybe. Not in imminent danger. And 3 days later, they got the airport, they got everything. So what is it? And it's mamish in the beginning of Elul. So we see that the Shor and the Chamor are doing very well together. Doing very well together. So whose responsibility is to stop it? It's Avram, it's Yaakov. We have to understand how. And if we see that the ego had the combination of the ox and the donkey, and that's what caused the luchos to be broken, and that caused death to come to the Jewish people. Once you let Esav and Yishmael work together, the Cheda ego came with the combination of those two aspects. It needed lust, which certainly the heir of Rav lusted, and the power that came from the money that they had. And that's how you're able to go against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that caused death. That brought mortality to the Jewish people. We were immortal. And all of a sudden, we're mortal again. And now Moshe has to spend the whole Elul to get back to Luchos. Still doesn't bring back our immortality, but at least something. So what is it that we have to do? What is our avodah in Elul? What is our response to the fall of Kabul? You might think it has something to do with us. Oh boy, has it got to do with us. Oh boy, does it have to do with us. You think, no, they're only going to attack the United States. That's right. But they always put together, it's the two partners, United States, Israel. Right? And you're going to see Biden is going to want to distance himself from Israel as much as he can, possibly, whatever he can. So this is all Hashem moving the pieces of the puzzle. So what do? We just send a letter to our congressman, and even Trudeau, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. I don't know if we could have any relations with ships with this new government. They don't know. Just go in there, blast the hell out of them. I mean, you're so stupid. You think they're just going to stay in Afghanistan, or was it Afghanistan? Not Pakistan. Afghanistan. I said when I said Pakistan. You think they're just there to stay there? Anyway, so what do we got to do? So now let's move on. So we quoted this Gemara already before. Now we got to take it a little more in depth. The Gemara, the second half of the Gemara. Torah V'Elio, Lo of Yossi Michalowicz, Divrei Torah Kishor La'ol Ukachamor L'Masu. A person should always place himself, subjugate himself to matters of Torah, like a shor la'ol, like an ox to a yoke, and like a chamor la'masoi, and a donkey to a load, to a burden. What does the Gemara mean with that? What does those terms mean? An ox, you put a yoke on him, and he plows. The donkey, you put a load on him. Okay, so we already know what the ox and the donkey is for negative. For negative, Yishmael and Esau. But obviously, it starts off with a positive, because Yaakov said, Yesh li shor v'chamor. When he said that, he was talking positive, wasn't he? Yeah. And if you look carefully, you'll see how it fits in so well into the Psukim. He says, Im Lavan Garti. I stayed with Lavan, and the hint is that I did all 613 mitzvahs. And then it says, Vayili shor v'tzol. Shor v'chamor, whatever. Shor v'tzol. So what's going on over here? It should be you know what? There's a word missing here. I'm having all problems by cutting the paces. Really shor v'chamor, not shor v'tzon. It's also the word chamor. It's missing here. I have a typo. I knew there was something wrong with that. I was working very fast to put this together this afternoon. Anyway, so what's going on? What is this idea that we find in regarding to learning Torah? What is this? So the Chassam Sofar says the following. He says, he quotes the Gemara. He says, kishor l'radio, meaning lavoda b'charisha. What is it? He plows. He plows deep. Right? Okay. Which is a hint to it's the sharpness of learning. And after he clarifies the studying, and he grinds it, solus nikia, and he sifts through it, and he produces clean bread. Now it's ready to travel. Now it goes like on the donkey's back who takes the sheaves. Like the chamor who carries books. Okay. So let's see what this means. So the Ben Yehoyada takes it a little bit further. But what he is saying is a shor is like learning Torah in depth to clarify it. And the chamor is to repeat the learning so that it's you retain what you have. In other words, it's a two-step process. The Ben Yoda says the same thing. He says, Kishor la'ol, what does it mean an ox to it with a yoke? Belimud ha'iyun, learning things in depth, asfar in logic. The chamor la'masui, and a chamor with a load. Belimud ha'girsa, reviewing what you know. And the Chavetz Chaim goes in greater detail, and it's worth reading it inside. It's all in this Gemara. What's it? They have shor and chamor, because the shor was created lachrosh, to plow the earth. When you plow the earth, then you could plant and fruits will come out of it. What's the donkey? He's just Raksha, no say Allah Satua. He just carries the grain that came out of the ground. And so it is with learning Torah. The beginning, you got to work hard to understand what's going on and to understand exactly what's there. So now that you understand it, what do you do next? Then when it's clear, mitzvah lisav, you got to carry the load of the Torah. By what? By reviewing it and reviewing it so you don't forget it. That's the two-step process of learning
So
Torah.
is it only reviewing, also practicing what they say?
Well, you have the first idea. You're learning something and you're not even sure what you're learning. So you got to dig in.
Okay.
You got to plow. You got to turn up over the soil to understand concepts. In Gemara, let's say we're learning halach. We're learning halach in the Smichas Chaver program. Or you learn any halach. It's complicated. When do we say borer? When do we not say borer? When does it apply? When doesn't it apply? You got questions we have to discuss. We answer back and forth. Okay, now you come out with, this is the bottom line. But what's going to happen very quickly? You're going to forget it. You plowed and you plowed. You got it. Easy come, easy go. What happens if you plow the field and you harvest the grain and you leave it in the field? You got to take it on the donkey and take it home. Got to bring it home. How do you bring it home? How do you bring knowledge home? You got to review. You got to carry it. You got to carry it and review it. That's not so hard. But you got to carry it till it's clear. And that's why the Gemara says, let olam, always. La'olam Yossi Michalowicz. What does it mean, la'olam? What does it mean, la'olam? A person shouldn't think, you know what? Their big rabbis already figured this all out before me. And I don't have to look into it. I have nothing to add. And the Gemara says, you know, why is the Torah considered to a woman's breast? And it says, just like a breast, as long as the baby sucks, he gets a new taste. The milk tastes a different taste. So it is with Torah. The more you study, the more you get out. And he says that everybody has his own chelik in Torah. Everyone has a chelik. And so it means la'olam, always. A person should always feel that hareu kamishal nechrashim. It's like you haven't plowed yet. And when you plow it, you're going to bring out fruits. Everyone has their realm of Torah that they can understand. So it is clear what's going on over here. That we're being told that, remember, we started off this Gemara. Can't forget the Gemaras we've been learning over here. The Gemara says, fortunate are the Jewish people who are engaged in Torah and Chesed, and their Yetzer Hara is given over to them, right? And what was that? And the legs of the donkey and the ox are pushed away. That's someone who learns Torah like the ox with the yoke and the donkey with the load. So what's it saying? How do you push away the ox and the donkey? How do you push away the negativity of the ox and the donkey? How do you push away the lethal merger of Esav and Yishmael, who are the counter opposites of Chesed and Gevura? It comes by being the ox in Torah and the donkey in Torah. You got to learn it hard till you understand it, and then you got to review it until you take it all. And there's a whole discussion the Gemara has, what's more important? Is it sharpness of mind that you can delve in and come to the conclusions of topics? Or is it the abundance of information that you retain? It was a big machlokas in Gemara. Who should be the Rosh Yeshiva? The one with the smarter mind, who can ask the most penetrating questions and come up with the deepest insights, or the one who can remember the most information? So the Talmud says, you know what? They said everybody needs wheat to make the bread. Meaning to say we all have to know as much information as possible. And they made one rabbi who had the greatest breadth of knowledge, Rosh Yeshiva, but he refused. In deference, he felt the other rabbi was greater, so the other rabbi was first Rosh, and then he would be the Rosh Yeshiva. So we see this is the idea of these 2 points over here, that we have to be engaged in both aspects of Torah to understand it and then to review it and to not to forget it. Okay, with this, we can now begin to understand now everything that's going on over here, where Esav goes to Yishmael's daughter and marries Yishmael's daughter because they want to take the two powerful forces together to destroy. Well, we know the famous Mishnah, Pirkei Avos, the world stands on 3 things: Torah, Avoda, and Gemilus Chasadim. And we know that who represents Torah of the patriarchs? Yaakov. Okay, that is, and Avoda is Yitzchak, and Gemilus Chesed is Avram. So now Yaakov is the pillar of Torah, and therefore, since study Torah the way the ox and the donkey are supposed to learn, that's why he says, "Vayihili shor v'chamor." He says, and I'm not afraid of you. I don't care what you got. I kept my whole Torah. Why? Because I was like an ox and a donkey. Okay. So now we understand what the antidote is. It's very interesting, because the whole idea of studying Torah, is you're learning the difficult Torah. That's like the ox who's plowing. The ox who's plowing, you need a lot of gevura for that. A lot of strength to plow through a Gemara, to not give up on what you're learning. And that is the good way of using gevura. Reviewing is making the information expansive. And I'm adding on, it increases, and that's chesed. That's expansive. That's the positive way of doing it. And it integrates into your life, and then you're able to do chesed with other people, etc., etc. And that once we use the power in the good way, the enemies cannot use the power in the negative way. When you see that Esav and Yishmael are merging together, that means we are not studying Torah. We're not representing what Yaakov. Yaakov is that beautiful blend and synthesis of chesed and gvura. And he incorporates it into his Torah learning. And that means if you really understand the Torah properly, then you understand how to live your life properly, and then you understand what real chesed is. And then you're using gvura in the right way. And there's no room for the non-Jews to pick this up and to take control and use it in a bad way. This is where the battles are won and lost. That's what Yaakov was not. He's told Esav, I'm not afraid of you. Ultimately, I have to win. So now let's bring it back to the month of Elul and see what we have to do over here. The Medrash says something fascinating. The Medrash says that when Moshe was up on the mountain, he learned everything. Whatever Torah that we have, Moshe learned it for the 40 days. Now, a very interesting question the Medrash asks. How did Moshe know how long he was there on the mountain? I mean, he's up in Shemayim.
No day and night.
No day and night. How did he know he was there 40 days? So the Medrash gives us the answer.
Maybe after he came, no, people told him.
How does he know how many days he was there? It says he was there 40 days and 40 nights. But how did he know? There's no such thing as night. Because it says that it's all bright. In Shemaim, it's only shining straight, 40 days of shining. So it says like this. Moshe said, Vanochi amadati bahor. I stood on the mountain, kayamim arishonim, like the first days, to get the second set. And it says also, va'eshev bahor, and I sat on the mountain. So I don't understand. Did he stand or sit on the mountain? So it's like this. When Hashem spoke to him and taught him Torah, he stood. For Hashem, you have to stand. When Hashem left him, he sat down and reviewed what he learned. Nim says it comes at Makayim Vanochim. It says he fulfilled. I stood on the mountain when I was learning with Hashem. And I was sitting on the mountain when I wasn't. When Hashem spoke to him, he knew it was the daytime. Hashem said, go learn your own Torah. He knew it was night. So let's try to understand what's going on over here. What was Moshe doing when he was on the mountain? He was being like the shore and like the chamor. When Hashem is teaching him, and it's hard, he's the shore, plowing away. But then at night, he's reviewing. He's the chamor. He's reviewing. He's pulling away. What do I have? Now, what is going on exactly? Why is he exactly doing that? You know what? Because he's trying to reverse the destruction that came from the Chet HaEgo, which was in the form of the head of a shore and the body of the chamor. It was those forces, the negative forces of shore v'chamor, of Esav and Yishmael, that was able to wreak havoc with the Jews and cause doubts in their mind. Remember, Amalek is all about doubts. So even though Amalek did not yet fight the Jewish people, but there was a little Amalek going on at Har Sinai. They didn't think Moshe was around. They doubted that he would return. Well, where was the proper chesed and gura? They didn't have it. It got messed up because of the Erev. And that for that moment to let the forces of Esav and Yishmael work together, that caused eternal death to the Jewish people. No Torah. So Moshe says, I got to get the Torah back. How am I going to do it? The way the Gemara said. You got to be what? You got to be like a shore and a chamor in a positive way. And he's plowing through the Gemara with Hashem, and then he's trying to understand it and review it and doing the chamor. And when was he doing this? The month of Elul. The month of Elul, running all the way up to Yom Kippur, which is fascinating. You see, amongst all the things that we have to put on our checklist for Elul is to emulate Moshe Rabbeinu as much as possible in the month of Elul. And to as much as possible, dig deep into the Torah that you're learning to understand things that are a little bit more difficult and review. And those two things are able to push off the forces of Amalek. Because really, what's Amalek telling us in this month? And that's no coincidence. The end of this week's PARSHAS, Milchemas Amalek. Zachor, Amalek. Why did Amalek attack us in Rafi? Because Rafa Yedem, our hands were weak from Torah. Whenever we're not strong in Torah, that's when the doubts come in. When the doubts come in. So what's the biggest doubt people could have in the month of Elul? Is it possible for me to do tshuva? Would Hashem ever want to take me, the Shmo, back? I'm going to go through another year of promises that I'm not going to keep. There's lots of doubts. You know why there's lots of doubts? Because we're busy doing a lot of things, but not learning. And that's the challenge that you find like this, where the Elul is almost swallowed up in the month of August. Where August is the month of not learning. Somebody made me a very tempting, no, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't tempting, made me an offer last week. Whatever the situation was, the person had already purchased a very nice 1 week rental in Florida. What's the very famous expensive hotel there on the Collins? The really fancy. What? No, really fancy. In the higher numbers, 50s. What?
Mountain Blue.
Mountain Blue. How did Chaya know that? Were you ever there, Chaya?
Just visiting, yes. Somebody took me there to visit, like to show me the place.
The person had booked a week at the Fontainebleau. And for whatever reasons, he wasn't able to use it. So he goes to me and he says, Rabbi, it'd be my pleasure. You and your wife go to Florida. It was for this week. First told me last week. All expense, and he's talking about how fancy it is. It's like on the higher floors where you have a private pool, like for only 6 or 7 families. You could have a beautiful week in Florida. I said, my friend, I don't go on vacations in LA. I said, last week when I went to Banff, I wanted to go earlier, but the other people in our group couldn't, and they were going on Sunday, and they wanted to stay till the following Sunday. I said, I can't. I got to be back for Shabbos because I can't miss the first day of El. So in my own vacation, I cut 2 days short. So I'm not going to, and the guy kept asking, don't worry, it's my pleasure. I don't get it. It's Elul. I don't go on vacation in Elul. Elul, you got to learn. You got to do tshuva. It's business as usual. You have vacation from work, take it off in July. You take it off right after Tisha B'Av. There's 3 weeks from Tisha B'Av to Elul. That's the time to go on vacation. But it's time you should be learning Torah. So that's how we got the second Luchos. And that really represented complete forgiveness. You know, you want Hashem to forgive you. But the question is, what's the real problem? The real problem is we've distanced ourselves from Hashem. Teshuvah means to return to Hashem. So what do you mean to return to Hashem? Well, obviously, anybody who sins has been distant from Hashem. Now, what's the thing that brings you closest to Hashem? It's His Torah. Really working hard to understand His Torah and putting effort into it and trying to remember it and using all your midos to remember that, that is where Hashem now is in a position to want to forgive you because you want to restore the relationship. You want to restore the contact. And that's what Moshe did, and that's what we're supposed to do. That's where all the yeshivas, the proper yeshivas, they start at least on Rosh Chodesh Elul. They're all coming, my sons went away. That's when the time is to learn. And that's the avodah, and that's why you're finding that the Esav and Yishmael have gotten together in Afghanistan because there's just not enough of us studying Torah. Now, let's just end off with one other important point. It's not just about Elul, but let's see a very, very famous Orachaimah HaKadosh who quotes a Zohar or quotes a Zohar. It's the following. Rabbi Yossi Michalowicz questions why the current exile is lasting so long. Why is the Golus so long? Yebutzuk answers in the name of Rav Himnuna that the first 3 Geulos, we had 4 exiles, 3 redemptions, were the merits of the Avos. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The 4th Geula will be in the merit of Moshe. Or the merit of Moshe. Now, this 4th exile is the result of forsaking the Torah, which Hashem gave Moshe. So Hashem will redeem us when we occupy ourselves once again with His Torah, and then He will redeem us in the merit of Moshe.
So now this is the 4th exile.
Yes, it's from Rome. It's the fourth exile. And the fourth exile ends in the merit of Moshe. And Moshe, he ain't redeeming us if we're not learning Torah. If we're sitting around and wasting our time, then why would Hashem bring Mashiach? And this fits in very well to what the Arizal tells us. The Arizal tells us that the four exiles, Bavel, Modai, Yavon, and Edom, they constitute the entire body of the Klipa. We know that the seven lower spheros deal with our body, Chesed, for all that. But the four exiles, they're the Klipas. Bavel represents the head. Modai and PARSHAS represent the two arms. And Edom and Yishmael represent the two legs, which are long. It's one body of exile. And Edom and Yishmael, even though it says it's four exiles, but somehow in Chazal, Yishmael slips in to be part of the fun and games at the end of the fourth exile. He's there. So the Shvilei Pinchas concludes and says we went like this. So the last Gullus, the one we're currently in, corresponds to the two legs, the Gullus of Edom and the Gullus of Yishmael, which correspond to the Klipos of the ox and the donkey who want to join forces to wage war against Israel. It's precisely this reason Hashem warned us, and again, I put these words in backwards. I'm sorry, they're backwards. Lo sachrosh b'shor b'chamar yachto. Do not plow with an ox and a donkey together. That means we got to study Torah, the yoke like a ox, and the load like a chamor. And by means of doing that, we eliminate the ox and the donkey of the klipas of Esav and Yishmael, and that's how we bring the Mashiach. So there's two things going on over here. We're trying to get our relationship restored for El, like Moshe got our relationship restored for El. And we also want Mashiach to come. This is something that, and now, we can speculate. What are those things that are holding us back from learning properly? But they obviously have to do with Esav and what Esav and Yishmael represents. Yishmael represents Tivus. So how many Tivus that we get involved in that force us to not have enough time to study Torah? And it's not even studying Torah. This whole idea, and again, I hate to belabor the point with the technology, but forget about religiosity for a minute. Forget about the Torah. But the fact technology is causing our brains to turn into mush. And when your brains turn into mush, how long can you focus on Torah? How long can you sit learning in depth? Because most of the technology trains us to not have very long attention spans. If you don't have a long attention span, then you can't focus on your learning. If you also have so much unuseful information that's filling up in your mind, where have you got place in your mind to fill up all the Torah information? So, it always comes in different forms. But Esav and Yishmael, that klipa, has invaded so many parts of Yiddishkeit. Now, of course, there's things we can do good with this. I mean, certainly we can use the Zoom and reach out to people who could not normally come. But by and large, this is the issue why the Golus is so long. And if we want the Golus to end, we've got to be able to get ourselves refocused on how to really, the main job of a Jew, and especially a man, is to learn Torah. That's his recreational sport, and to be a scholar in Torah. And to that degree, we could do that. That's how we keep Esav and Yishmael apart. As long as we keep them apart, the world is a safe place. If we don't, it's not. Hashem should help us that we fulfill this. That is how today in 2021, even if we don't own an ox, we don't own a donkey, that's how we don't let them plow together to bring safety to the Jewish people in the entire world. Amen. Okay, 5 minutes early.
5 minutes, Papa.
I'm finished.
But I have to get I'm late, so.